Soulless Dead Chapter 4. And so it begins. We sat around for what felt like forever. Some people, of course, were grouping up and talking to each other, wondering what they were going to do next. It was pretty much the same old story everywhere. I, of course, wandered around patrolling, looking for something to do. I would eat a Cliff Bar every so often, take a drink of water from my camel bag, and look around just as nervously, trying to put on a tough face so that people would believe that they are safe. But deep down in my mind, I was being impatient and getting actually angry that we weren't doing anything important. We weren't fortifying things, we were just sitting around, like, waiting for somebody to do something for us. I knew the one thing, when the government collapsed and all this sort of thing was going on, that we only had us just to really rely on. We could only pray to God that we would be able to be spared all the pain and heartache that we would see the world and our little towns and our friends going through. I tell you, I was at hair trigger mode, and then it happened. As I was walking along, I saw a bunch of kids. Young teenagers, a couple of them I knew pretty well. In the church, they were laughing and giggling like something was funny. And I can tell you, in this high-stress situation, I snapped. I was pissed. I grabbed the one that was making jokes and I threw him up against the wall with my hands around his collar, and I asked him if he thought this was funny. His eyes darted back and forth, and sweat was rolling down his face. I looked at him, and whenever I get mad, it seems my nose gets pointy, my nostrils flare, and my teeth show. I looked like a troll or something, or a demon. But I was pissed. I didn't care. The other kids backed up and asked me to take it easy, and I pushed them away. And I asked him, "What do you think is funny about this? What do you think is going to happen? You think this is some kind of Call of Duty game where you can just pick up a lot of bullets and just keep firing? You can fight out as many as you want, but I'll tell you, grown men are being bitten and eaten, alive. You think some punk teenager has the power to overpower one of those things? There are people getting killed, soldiers, trained men. And you think this is some kind of game where you can have everything plotted out for yourself. Guess what? You're just a punk kid. There's nothing funny about seeing your friends getting killed. There's nothing funny about any of this. You think those little comforts like your Xbox and your iPod and your PS3 or whatever the hell it is are just going to be there for you. That mommy and daddy will be able to buy you whatever you want. And you'll get to eat and you'll get to be happy. No. I picked him up and grabbed the shirt even tighter, and I slammed him up against the wall again. I told him all the little comforts that you have. Your air conditioning, the toilet paper to wipe your ass, all those things are gone. The supplies have stopped, and this is the harsh reality. Again, I was snarling, I was angry, I was shaking. He was now looking at the ground. He wasn't even going to fight back. He realized that he was wrong. It seemed like me and him were the only two people in the universe. We're in this white box, and his back was against the wall. It was like I just turned off reality, just to yell at this one stupid kid. Well, reality snapped back pretty quick. By then, I looked around, and a lot of the church community was in shock, jaws open, wide agape. Some people were whispering to each other again, and I let go. I loosened my grip. His shirt ruffled back down to its relatively original size. He loosened up a little bit, and his head sunk down even more, tears welling up in his eyes. Again, I took a few deep breaths, and I looked around and again saw people lasering holes in the back of my head. At first, I muttered I'm sorry and backed off a little bit, and I looked at him and I apologized. I shouldn't have snapped like that. He told me that I was right, that it wasn't a game, and that one of his friends was actually killed up the street. From where he lived, I didn't know that. I guess he was just trying to cope like I do with all my problems by laughter. I apologized. I told him there was still no reason for me to act like that. And I put my hand on his shoulder and I told everybody that I didn't mean to do that. But I told them that we needed to do something about it. I told everybody to come to the sanctuary, and we all did. Everyone poured in there, and we had the doors guarded just in case. I got up on the pulpit and explained to everybody, a punk kid my age, talking to elders and deacons and everybody in the church. I told them sitting around and waiting for somebody to come save us is not going to happen. Life is no longer the way it used to be, and that it never will be, most likely. We need to take charge of what we have right now, and we need to make a plan immediately. We need to fortify the doors. We need to get people to work together. I enacted a couple rules. The first being the most basic. No one ever goes outside alone. No one ever goes anywhere alone. Not to go to the bathroom, not to eat, not to get anything out of their car. Not anywhere in the church can you go alone. I told them 2 by 3 or whatever number you can think of, never go anywhere. Just because it seems like we're safe doesn't mean we're always going to be safe. So it's always good that people stick together. They all nodded, agreed. Scattered yeses, and that's true. Which was actually rather nice that people agreed for once. I then told them that we needed to be absolutely careful with the rations that we had, that it would no longer be that we could eat anytime we wanted, but we had to portion out everything that we had, to stretch everything, and all the men agreed with that one for sure. That one was definitely amen for sure. I told them that we had to fortify and that we also had to make sure that we go on supply runs. As despicable as it seemed to steal from other stores, we had to do something to survive. Many people were actually leaving the town or going somewhere else, so really the pickings were slim, but we could still use stuff. And the last thing I said was this. We need to get one of the dead. We need to find them and learn more about them. Yes, it's going to be dangerous, but we need to catch one. Everybody agreed that we needed to know what we were up against, and so a small team, including myself, went out. We made a makeshift catch pole, like a dog catcher pole, with a long pole and a steel wire. We caught one. One of the men just so happened to have some handcuffs. He was a local police officer, and we cuffed the hands behind the back. And we took a towel from the kitchen and wrapped it around his mouth so that he couldn't bite anybody. Again, we took a close look at the ugly mug, and of course the eyes and the nose were bleeding. It was biting and trying to struggle out of the handcuffs and trying to get loose of the catch pole. It knew we were there. We were dinner. We dragged it back into the church and tossed it into a room. Quietly. We shut the door. And at first, for the first 10 minutes, it would bang against the door, making noise and smearing its face all over the glass. We all walked away from the room and gave it about 30 minutes, which seemed like forever. It quieted down, and as soon as one of the guys had motioned for us to come over, we all wandered over there. Me, with all my armor on, I volunteered to go outside to see what it would do. It's definitely outside my comfort zone, but I went into the room and we opened the door as quietly as possible. The zombie had somehow made it over to the other side of the room and was kind of walking into a wall like a game character that had nobody with it, and tilted toggle to where it was just walking into the wall. Just wandering into it, and bumping into it, and it would stumble back and then walk again. It was like a kid with ADHD. It just lost interest and started doing its own thing. I walked in quietly with my handgun at the ready and a knife out in my hand. I waved my hands and tried to get its attention, but it was still walking into that wall with its back turned towards me. I reached into one of the toy boxes as quietly as I could and grabbed a little Duplo Lego and tossed it against the wall on the other side of the room. That got its attention. It moved back and wandered towards where the sound was at. It stood there, looking around. It couldn't tell anything. And then it looked right at me. I paused. Like seeing a hunter seeing a deer. Only I was the deer. I just stood there and looked at it. and it kind of moved its head and turned away, still looking for that sound. Puzzled, I grabbed another one of the Duplo blocks and tossed it to the other side of the room. Again, its head turned and it shuffled towards the sound. Again, it looked right at me and looked around, and it didn't see anything. Again, I remember that my mom had told me that it caused blindness when the disease had hit. It caused swelling of the brain. Maybe it was blind. So I started to wave my arms frantically, making all kinds of gestures and sort of things like that, but again, it didn't see me. It must have been activated by some kind of sort of sound thing, so these things were totally blind. Which I thought was an oh thank God moment, but I realized that they were still deadly and still dangerous. Which again, I needed to take very seriously. I grabbed one more Duplo block and tossed it towards the wall where it was originally. It wandered over there and began to scan the area. I quietly walked up behind it as fast as I could and put the knife through the back of its head. I guess the blood pressure was so high towards the head where the brain had started to swell, it gurgled outside of the head around the knife, which I thought was rather gross. It sounded like someone releasing pressure from a steam valve or something. Just a light hiss, and then it fell to the floor. I pulled my knife out and wiped it off with the rag that was wrapped around its mouth. I walked out and stated the situation, that it could not see, but it could hear very well. It was attracted to sound, and that they were totally blind. Again, there was that misconceived conception of, oh thank God, it can't see us. But I told them that if they were able to beat the military, there's still nothing to be shaking a stick at. Everyone agreed, and we all just got together and we prayed about it. We prayed that God would protect us and that things would be a little different, and that He would find favor with us. A lot of people would say that that's a stupid idea and that God wouldn't let something like this happen, but crap happens when bad people get together. And good things can happen when good people come together. It seemed like a little bit, and then we got up together and we explained to the rest of the community in the church. We told them what to be careful of and how to be careful. Then I remembered that I reached into my bag and grabbed an old Thunderbee. Being an airsoft player for years, I had used this loud sound bang device. It's a small device. You pull out a cylinder and you place an old CO2 cartridge in it. You pull the pin just like a grenade and throw it, and a needle will strike the CO2 and it'll cause the canister to burst, sounding a lot like a shotgun. I told them, and I distributed a couple of them to some of the more armed men in the church and gave them to them, saying to only use it in the most extreme situations. They'll be attracted to the sound and they'll flock to it. But you gotta remember, it'll also attract more. So the best thing to do is to get the heck out of there. But, again, you can't be totally prepared for this sort of thing. I didn't have very many, but I sure was glad I grabbed them. It's amazing how a stupid little toy can turn out to be really useful.